So I'll call the North Smithfield School Committee meeting of February 9, 2021 to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Lombardi,
Present.
Mrs. Mayo,
Here.
Mrs. Vada,
Here.
Mr. Connell,
Mute.
yeah,
Here.
and Mr. Jones.
Here.
We have 5 present. We have a quorum. Move on to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, good.
Aye.
I pledge allegiance
To
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
liberty
and
and justice for all.
For all.
Oh, welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming. Do we have anyone here from Bacon? I mean, I'm sorry, Boucher Bacon and Company.
Yeah, Pat is here.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Pat, did you want to do a little presentation for us on the annual audit?
Yes, I mean, usually I give a presentation. I don't have anything to put up on a shared document or anything like that. I usually just give an oral presentation. Is that fine for tonight as well?
It is. Everybody received a copy of the audit, so.
Okay,
And
I'll
if
proceed like normal.
if you would be open to maybe some questions, if anybody were to have them after the meeting, not after tonight meeting, but down the road, somebody may email you.
Yep, sure, that's fine.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so if you have your audited financial statements in front of you, the pages 1 and 2 and 3 of the financial statements are our independent auditors report. It's an unmodified opinion, which means it's a clean opinion. And it means the statements are presented in conformance with generally accepted accounting principles. So that's what pages 1 through 3 basically say. I can get into the financial statements themselves, which start on page 4. That's your balance sheet, and you can see it's the school unrestricted fund and then the school restricted funds, which is all your school grants, food service. At the end of the year, June 30th, 2020, the bottom of the page, you can see that there's a total fund balance for the school unrestricted fund of 1.1 million. And there's various aspects of that fund balance that are broken down. Primarily your unrestricted funds available, they're considered restricted, but for education purposes are about 900,000. And then there's various other restrictions for your building and field maintenance, preschool, and special ed costs. So you can see that plainly on page 4. Page 5 is your statement of revenues and expenses. You can see that the net change in fund balance, the third line from the bottom, you had an overall decrease in your fund balance of 1.2 million. Primarily that was because of the large transfer to the capital reserve fund at the town of 1.6 million. So your overall fund balance went from approximately 2.4 million to approximately 1.2 million at 6/30/20. So that's page 5. And then I will, behind the footnotes to the financial statements on page 13 of the document is your budget to actual statements. So you can see that more from a budgetary standpoint. Your original budget as passed, any budget amendments with your final budget, and then the actual numbers. So you can see your total revenues for the year. You had a favorable variance in that last column of about 1.5 million, but that's because of the influx of the 1.6 million from fund balance that you earmarked for that reserve transfer. And then you can see your total expenditures. You had a favorable variance of 717,000. Obviously, you can see some of the more favorable line items are the purchase services, et cetera. That's because of transportation with COVID and everything. A lot of the costs were down in those areas. So overall, the bottom line from a budgetary standpoint, you had an operating surplus of 463,000 for the year from a budgetary standpoint. So those are your main statements. And then starting on page 15 are all your miscellaneous grants, food service fund. I can go through that if you'd like, or if you prefer to look at that on your own. And then if you have questions, Most of those funds don't have fund balance. They're grants, they're reimbursement basis, so they don't have, you request the funds and they get reimbursed. The only fund that really has any substantial fund balance is the food service fund of about 100,000. And I mean, there's a career in tech has some monies, but those will be spent. It's just the way they come in and then they get spent. So, so that's my quick overview of the financial statements. We did do a single audit, but it was on the town side this year, so we didn't have to audit the federal funds on the school side. And we did your UCOA testing. There, a couple little findings that were corrected. So that's all been approved and sent in that document as well. So, and there was no management letter comments for the school. So that's my quick overview of the audit. So I don't know if anyone has any questions now, if they'd like to ask.
Does anybody have any questions? So we can keep Lisa for another year? Good job, Lisa, as always. There was any problems, we'd see them in the management comments, which there are none. And by accident, because of COVID, we ran a surplus. So anyway, does anybody have any questions? Pat, thank you very much. And if anybody has any questions, I'll have them email you directly. Is that okay?
That's fine. Lisa has my contact information.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to public comment. Does anybody have any public comment? Let me make sure I get everybody up here. If you can raise your hand, either physically or through the screen, you can make any public or community comments. I see none, Superintendent.
I don't see any.
Okay. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about anything on the consent agenda? I know that, I guess on item number 8, which is the high school graduation requirements. Claire, is this, I know that we talked about this last meeting. Is this for 1 year only, or is this moving forward? You're on mute.
We are putting it in the policy, so it would be moving forward. However, it will be something that we discuss as a leadership team. And we reach out to our team leaders, our department heads, our administrators, superintendent, to have conversations about what other districts are doing, how we think it went, what are the pros, what are the possible unintended consequences. So we may come back to you in a year or sooner and ask, want to review that policy again. But because we're putting it in policy, it just will be the policy. There's not like a sunset within it.
Okay. May I ask that you do come back and report on it, let's say 6 months?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
And then we can hear about it. We can, if we need to debate it, we can debate it. But I'd like to, see what's going on in 6 months and see, what actually happened with it.
Yeah,
So
we're happy to do that.
great, thank you. And just there was an error on item number 9. The amount didn't equal the written amount. That's been corrected. So it's actually in your packet correct now. And if anybody has any questions, we can answer those. Hearing none, I'll.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I had one question about the high school graduation requirement, if that's appropriate at this time.
Sure, of course.
And just to Claire, it'd be just to Claire or whoever wants to address it. And it's just simply on the senior projects, Claire, I looked at it generally. That's how much are they being modified? Well, okay, that's a bad way to put it. I just want to say, obviously, it's harder for the seniors this year with the. Well, are there any modifications to the senior project this year?
Yeah.
I know in the past there's been a lot of, the requirements are a lot of on-site and working with other people, and obviously that's limited this year.
Mr. Connell, I think Mr. McGee would be the best to speak to that.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Yeah,
with me.
we have made some adjustments, Mr. Connell. For example, one of the things is in the past, we said that you couldn't have a relative as a mentor. And obviously in this time, the only people you're in touch with are family members and so forth. So we have a little wiggle room there. And we are, case by case, we're looking at what students are doing and we're working with them. But they're all pretty much on task. There's a few that are a little bit behind, but for the majority, everything seems to be going pretty well.
Good, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? I'll entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda, I'll say as amended.
So moved.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on right to the superintendent's report. Superintendent?
Yep, and actually for this section, I'd like to bring in our three principals to give a school status update for each of their buildings. And just to mix things up, I'd like to do it in, typically I do elementary, middle, and high school. I think this time, since Mr. McGee is right there in the center of my screen, I think maybe we'll start with high school. And if you'll apologize, it's not that I don't want to hear what you're saying, Mr. McGee. My son is having his 21st birthday and there's a lot of noise downstairs and I would like to shut my door. I'm going to step away for a moment and then it's all Mr. McGee.
All right, this will be fabulous, I promise. So
Ooh, hi.
couple things to report about the high school. We saw a lot of students choose the distance learning option, especially when we hit the surge back at Christmas break. And more and more, as we had more and more cases, people were opting to do distance learning. And what has happened since then is they're continuing to do distance learning, even though the numbers are going down. So I have a lot of students doing distance learning. There's actually a couple of problems with attendance right now, and I want to explain to you what they are. So that's one of the issues. I have attendance is fairly low as far as in-person learning because they're choosing to do distance learning. Another thing that's happening is students that are supposed to be either in the cohort A or B or 4 days a week, that students are deciding to just not come to school and then just log on to the computer and take their lessons listening, online. That's something that wasn't the intention of this whole program. The hybrid program wasn't intended for them to have an option to just stay home because I feel like it. Of course, if you are having any kinds of signs or symptoms of COVID-19, we ask that you stay home. we want you to stay home, but I don't think that's the case for a lot of the students. So if you have a student that's only supposed to be in school twice a week in person, and then they miss one of those days, they've missed half their week basically. So that's an unintended thing that we're seeing right now. The other thing that I'm beginning to see right now is that with sports starting up again, student athletes are opting to stay home as well. I spoke to one of the mothers about it, and what she said was the seasons are so short now, maybe it's a 6-week hockey season or something like that. They don't want to come into school because if they're close by to someone that is positive, then they have to quarantine for 2 weeks, and they're going to miss 2 weeks of their sporting season. And it's only a 6-week abbreviated season as it is. So out of fear, they're staying home and doing distance learning instead. Bottom line is that my building doesn't have as many students as I normally have. Now, that's a problem because at the high school, we have assigned seating at lunches and that type of thing. So I'll have an assigned table and I'll have 3 or 4 students at each table. And then what happens is, let's say, for example, there's 3 kids at a table. 2 of them decide they're going to go to distance learning. Now I have one poor kid sitting there eating lunch alone by himself. And I wouldn't want to eat lunch by myself either. I feel bad, but that's just the way it is, right? So what ends up happening is we're seeing students getting up from their assigned seat and going, with their friends and that type of thing. It's just a tough situation. So we're trying to wrap our heads around it. I'm going to send out a letter to all the parents encouraging the students to come to school when they're supposed to be in school, because seating is at a premium right now. So it's a, you know, I just got to get them in there. The problem is I have no teeth with this, right? Like all they have to do is say, you know, I don't feel well, I have a headache. That's why I'm staying home. But I know kids. I was a kid. I remember vividly being a kid. And if I had the option on a day where I was a little tired to get an extra hour, and I might do the same thing. You know what I mean? So I think that's part of the problem. On another note, we're trying to, now that semester 2 is here, we do have a lot of happier courses and things are starting all over again. So me and my team are looking at trying to get the seniors back in at least the 4 days a week. I know that was our next big push. Right now we have the 9th graders back. We have our IEP 504 kids back. So that was something that we said we're going to be looking at. We're looking at it. Numbers are going down in the state and so forth. So, I mean, this is the last semester for the seniors. So we're trying to get them back. What I'm going to do is send out a survey to the senior parents, see how many want to be full-time versus distance learners. And if the numbers work out and I can arrange it, that's what I'm going to try to do. Keep in mind, some of these classes are a little bit large. So what I'm trying to do is, if I do have large classes, is to either have the kids pick different electives or whatever they need to do, change the schedule a little bit to try to decrease the number of students in a class. I may not have to do it. If I have enough students that opt to do distance learning instead of in-person learning, I can change that up a little bit. Now, one of the things I'm concerned about is, like, I don't know how strong to make this letter. I don't know if I should ask that they commit to the rest of the year, either distance learning or in-person learning, or I don't know if that's going to help us or hurt us, because if I want a commitment right now and they choose distance learning, then after semester 3, they want to come back for semester 4. Is that something that we want to do? I just want to know the exact number of students that I have coming so that I can safely put everybody where they need to be. So that's kind of my dilemma right now. Just knowing who it is I'm working with. If they commit to distance learning, that's fine. I know how many I have. The problem that I have is that some of them are not committing to distance learning and then they don't come to school. So when that happens, I have room for them and it's not being utilized right. Either they're in a sport and they opted not to come to school for 6 weeks, if that's how long the sport season is, or they just opted not to come to school that day and jumped on the computer instead. So those are kind of the things that we're up against right now. And then the last thing I just wanted to communicate is that we're just seeing students more and more, they're just kind of apathetic. And I get it, like it's just what's happening. I asked my teachers to give students every break they possibly can to get them over the hump. And I'll give you an example, kind of an exaggerated example. Teacher might have assigned a 6-page essay. 3 days before the end of the semester, the teacher might say, you know what, give me a page of something. And the student says, nah. So I don't know how to help. I mean, I just think it's something that we haven't dealt with to this magnitude before. So we are trying. Keep in mind that teachers do have the autonomy if they see an effort in semester 2 to go back and grade adjust if they have to. We did lower the grade a bit to try to get them over the hump, but it's just something that we haven't seen before. We always had such high standards at the school and everybody's expected to meet those high standards. And we're just seeing like some of the students kind of giving up. And I think I'm sure it has to do with this whole pandemic and lack of socialization and all that kind of thing. So for those reasons, that's why we're kind of looking to at least get the seniors back. If we do, then we have a full class of freshmen, full class of seniors, and the juniors and sophomores are still at the hybrid model. And that's probably about all I can get in the building safely at this point in time. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or ideas how to? And I gotta say that the other thing is, I probably didn't mention is the kids are behavior-wise, they're excellent. It's almost scary. Typically, Stephen Boss is the disciplinarian of the school, and you shouldn't be paying that man right now. He doesn't. He honestly, he's actually taken the role of a counselor right now. He spends a lot of time on the phone and calling parents, encouraging them to get involved and so forth. Because I think a lot of the parents just aren't familiar with what the kids are doing during the day. So when a student either doesn't log on to their classes or they're lagging behind in grades or they owe work and things like that, Mr. Boss has been on the phone. I think he spent 1 week solid, just the whole day calling parents. He's got a good rapport with a lot of the parents at home, and he's just letting them know ahead of time rather than an email, or he's actually calling them directly and letting them know that they need work. So that's a plus. So we essentially have an additional counselor with us almost, and we don't need a disciplinarian. So
and some of the conversations that we've had, and part of what Mr. McGee will be doing is reach out to the parents to help their kids stay on a schedule, because we have been very flexible with the moving in and out of distance learning. Originally, at the beginning of the year, we wanted a 1 quarter commitment, but things were changing so rapidly and family situations changed that we opened it up. If you need to be on distance learning, you can be on distance learning. If you can come into school, your family situation was safe, and come into school. Unfortunately, maybe some of that flexibility has changed the difference between distance learning and in-person learning as a convenience, as opposed to a necessity. And it's become, as Mr. McGee said, very convenient. If I'm tired, I didn't get a good night's sleep, or something is coming up, well, you know what? I'll jump online. And our plan, and as we're talking, we want to get the seniors in the week after February vacation. I don't know though, until we get a lock-in and a consistency with the student attendance and parents helping to get their kids to school, it does affect some of the planning. But if we had that locked in right now, I would, we talked about it, we could come back from February vacation with the seniors coming in 4 days a week. But I think Mr. McGee needs a little bit more time to work with the community, work with the students, work with the parents to get that commitment to 4 days a week, full distance learning. I'm on hybrid. I am cohort 1, I am cohort 2. And then we can lock down and then just move more kids in.
Great.
I don't think we have much to say. It is what it is, as they say, and I'm sure Mr. McGee will address that as best he can.
I think I'll use Mr. Boss's big personality and body to encourage people to come more often. He's actually goes out in his truck at sometimes and comes back with students. I've seen it happen more than once. So it's kind of an intimidating force when you see him knocking on the door and he's welcoming you.
And Mr. McGee, Mr. Boss has typed something into the chat. He said, "Thank you. I don't need the job, especially with the new baby at home." So don't push too hard, you'll lose him.
He's not going anywhere. He knows it.
I will shut off the chat so he doesn't respond. Anything else for the high school? If not, we'll ask Mr. Lahar to give an update on the middle.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you in some virtual form or another. The middle school, I think for us, I think things are going as well as can be expected. I think it's an unprecedented time for all of us, and it's every day is new territory. I think, when we opened the year and we started with, hybrid models and in-person and distance learning and 4 days a week and 2 days a week and all those types of things, we didn't know how long or how much or how things were going to be. So I think the key for us has been flexibility and honestly trying not to look too far ahead at times, and adjusting as things happen. Like for us, one of the things that we did to start the year was we had the teachers moving classrooms to the kids. So the kids were in the same room all day and the teachers moved around so we could limit movement and limit hallways and limit, hopefully, spread. As we saw things going through the year and, we weren't having major case problems at the middle school, we were hearing, from science teachers that we can't do labs because we're going to an English room. We can't bring all these chemicals with us. The tech ed teacher, I can't do wood shop in a classroom and things like that. So we adjusted to that and said, okay, now that we're a couple months in and this is a longer term picture than we thought, how can we move the kids safely so that we can start to ramp up our curriculum? So when things hit us, Friday, we had the gas thing. It was great. Instead of missing a day of school, the kids were able to stay home and be on distance learning and get some form of education. In years past, it just would have been an extended long weekend and, kids would have been here longer in June. And I know Claire and I always like to talk about that not the best learning in the world goes on in the last couple of days of June. So things like that have also been a benefit where if it snows, if there's a problem with the school, where we can transition quickly to distance learning and kids don't have a huge gap or break in instructional time. So it has been an advantage at times. For us, we have a lot of kids in the building right now, not as much as NSPS, who I was over there last week, and they are just swimming with children. But we have the 5th grade back full, the 6th grade back full, and our 7th and 8th grade are still hybrid. But we've been identifying students that we feel need to come back 4 days a week. We brought back our IEP kids, our 504 kids.
So catch up.
I like them better like that.
Am I still frozen?
No, you're
No,
back.
You have to. I'm going to shut off my video. That might help.
Okay. So right now we're pretty full for us for where we can be. Like our cafeteria, we've been having the kids eat in the cafeteria spaced out. We've already spilled into the chorus room to have lunch in the chorus room. Our lunches are now very, very full, to the point where if we keep bringing anybody else back, I don't know where we're going to be. They're going to be eating in my office with me because that's where they're going to end up spilling over into. But again, Christine's done a great job of shuffling those lunch schedules around and making sure kids have assigned seats so they're in the same spot every day. So worst case scenario, if should we have a case, it's only a handful of kids that would need to be quarantined instead of an entire lunch. We are having a little mini outbreak at the school right now. We have a couple of teachers who have come up positive, a couple of students who have come up positive. We did have to shut down a classroom this week, which is, the littler ones, the teachers are more kind of at their desks in their faces and they're kind of all around all over the place. So with the older kids, we can keep better distance and the hybrid model. So if we get a teacher or a kid, we don't usually have to shut down the entire classroom, but 5th and 6th grade, if something where it does happen, they're just so close all the time. I think Jen can attest to that, forces the whole classroom to be shut down. So we do have a classroom shut down right now and a couple people out and a few kids and a few adults quarantined. I think February break's coming at a good time to let everything calm down. Warmer weather's coming, vaccines are coming. I am knocking on my computer right now, even though it's not wood, feel like we've dealt with the worst. And I hope I'm not jinxing myself or anybody on this meeting right now. But again, we've been open every day. We've had kids in every day. We've really pushed through and tried to provide the best learning environment for kids as possible. It hasn't been perfect. Even kids who are in school 4 days a week, it's not school. It's not, I'm hanging out with my friends. We're bumping shoulders in the hallway. We're sharing food at lunch. Like it's distance and mask. It's a little drearier than normal. But I give the teachers and the kids a lot of credit that they are, you know, trying to make the best of a difficult situation, and everybody has kind of banded together in the situation, and it's become a collaborative effort. So it's not what anybody wants. It's not what anybody expects. You know, we can't wait to have school be school again. We all miss that tremendously. I am counting on it for September, that next year is going to be a traditional school year. But I thought last September was going to be a traditional school year. So maybe I'm just too much of an optimist at times. But I do think it's one of those years where, you know, 20 years from now, when they're talking to their own kids, they're gonna be like, I remember the pandemic year where I had to wear a mask to school every day and I couldn't talk to my friends. It's one of those life lessons and learning experiences that I think we'll all take with us forever. So we're making the best of it. We're doing what we can. We're trying to be as positive. We're trying to educate as much as we can, and we're trying to keep everybody safe. And I think we're doing a really good job of that. And that's a testament to the town, the school committee, the superintendent, the parents, the kids. Like, I wouldn't want to do this anywhere else. The people have been really, really good and really supportive and banded together. So I'm proud of what we've done. I don't know how good it is, but from what I see, I'm pretty proud of it. So that's the middle school update.
Thank you, Mr. Lahaz. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, Ms. Dana, do you want to wrap us up with some cuteness?
Oh, I will wrap you up with cuteness. So NSPS is doing very well. We also have had some mini outbreaks that have happened. Since Christmas vacation, we've shut down a 2nd grade class, a 4th grade class, and then our 2 preschools had been closed. I'm happy to report as of today, knock on wood, we have a full staff. Last week, we were tipping the line at about 17 to 19 staff absences per day. So we had a lot of our district administration down and helping us, which is what John had referred to. Steve Boss can absolutely never leave the district because he is one of our primary arrival and dismissal partners. So Steve is very well needed across the district. We are moving into the 2nd semester like everyone else is. Currently, what we're planning with Claire is starting to run some intervention groups. So we've asked our teachers to kind of take a look at their class and to identify some of the students that they're most concerned with right now. And we're trying to put some supports in place. We're also getting ready to roll out, which I'm very excited about, our kindergarten registration. So it's an online registration portal, and that's what it will be for the upcoming school year and moving forward. So I've been meeting with Melissa Matherin and Adam Stanley, as well as our front office staff and Salpy O'Neill and Rachel. Rachel's just always a given. I never want to say, like, when I say I, it means us. But when we're meeting, we're getting ready to roll that out. So we have some dates that we'll start rolling it out initially to our in-house families. So any of our families who are at NSPS, the middle school and the high school, who already have a parent portal account. It's a very easy registration process. From there, we'll do a rollout to the public. We're also working in conjunction with child outreach to make sure we're trying to get as many of our kiddos as possible. Once all of our K registrations are done, then we're going to start doing a little bit of community outreach to get some of our current kindergartners who may be in private settings to come back to NSPS for grade 1. So we are a little bit in a planning process just because of the mass amounts of registrations that we have. We want to start that process much earlier than we did last year. So we're kind of working through how to make the transition to NSPS a smooth one. In my conversation with Julie LaPlane, who is the child outreach coordinator for the Northwest region, she and I really had an interesting conversation because in my head, kindergarten was not a grade level for the 21-22 school year. I was overly worried about. They didn't have any kind of experience with school. So I wasn't, I was really focusing on our kids that have had a year and a half of a very disrupted school experience. And when I spoke to Julie, she was expressing to me that so many families that she's been doing outreach with are significantly concerned because their children haven't been socialized in close to a year. The only types of socialization they've been receiving for a lot of families is just adult interactions. So right now we're currently working on a plan to kind of get those kids in a little bit earlier. Both Rachel and I have kind of offered to assist throughout the summer to run some play groups and to do some things just to kind of get our kids into the school to see and really basic things, how to sit for a story, how to wait in line, how to stand and be patient for a couple seconds. So that's kind of where we're at NSPS. I have to give major props to my entire staff for everything that they've been doing. Our kids are coming in fully geared up for snow and they're playing outside. There is a lot to COVID that we will not let go of next year, one of which is kids playing in the snow. They've been, and teachers have been sledding down our big hill. The amount of physical activity is phenomenal. And I really would be remiss if I didn't recognize Salpy O'Neill for the major amount of work. This has been a massive undertaking for her. And Salpy absolutely is one of the primary reasons that we have been so successful this school year. So that's it. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Jen. Superintendent, you're on mute.
Rookie mistake. I should know better than that. I'd like to ask Claire Arnold to say a few words about the recent professional development that we're working on, which ties in very nicely with what our principals have said as far as making up learning gaps from this terrible, unusual year. Claire?
Sure, I'd love to. So, it's been actually an amazing year. And when I look back and reflect on it, because we've shifted so quickly, everything that we do and how we do it has changed. And but what's amazing to me is the amount of professional development that we've been able to do with teachers. So we have professional development days throughout the year, and we're giving teachers a variety of opportunities, and we're really trying to give them what they need and let them design some of their own professional development. So give them enough opportunities to make it really meaningful and purposeful for them. And so on a typical professional development day, we would have what we call task cards, and those cards are really an independent professional development that they can do as a self-paced guide. We have offerings from the Rhode Island Department of Ed that we have shared, and a lot of teachers have participated in those. We also have sessions that are technology based, and so using the technology to enhance our instruction or to instruct at all. Google Meets, Pear Deck, Jamboard, Cayenza, using Google Drives, tips and tricks for that, using breakout rooms within Google Meets. And so, and the list goes on and on and on. So a lot of technology based. We also did professional development this year in our PD series, Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain. We also, and this is one of the things that absolutely amazed me, and I say it all the time, but our teachers they're unbelievable. They're so amazing because we put out professional learning communities. Those are voluntary. And so if there's a topic that we want to explore, we'll put it out to the district and anyone can participate. It's not, no one gets paid for it. It's after school hours. But we dig deeply into a topic. And so a recent PLC that I put out to the district was achievement gap analysis PLC, really looking at our achievement data and where we are, what populations of students that we want to look at that will need work. And it's a 12 to 15 hour commitment over 10 weeks of time. I had 21 of our educators participate in that and sign up for it. And it was administrators and teachers from the elementary, middle, and high school level. And this is, I mean, and everyone's going above and beyond. And I'm just so incredibly impressed. We're also doing some curriculum work this year with, we're doing a lot of curriculum work because we've refined our curriculum this year because we're all focusing on our major content standards or our critical standards for the year. So we're having a lot of meetings discussing that and discussing our pacing, opportunities for students and how to best meet their needs, but engage them in the learning. And we're also looking at our final curriculum. When we look at the legislation that we have to have all high quality instructional materials, and that was some of the new legislation, and that the last curriculum to do for the ELA and math for those two will be the elementary math. And we actually just finished up our recommendation for the elementary math. And so after, by June, we will have all high quality instructional materials K to 12 for ELA and for math. And so the only other part of the legislation is the science, but that's kind of put off for now because of the programs aren't developed to even look at. And so that's definitely in the future. But the amount of work that people have done and have gone above and beyond, I'm floored every day. It is a privilege to do my job. And so I just wanted to give kudos to all the folks working so hard.
That's great. Does anybody have any questions? Hearing none, Superintendent, did you want to say anything else?
No, that concludes my report. I cannot improve on what the folks have said.
Great. Moving on to, right, for informational purposes, Ms. Ethia retired, correct, Superintendent?
Yes, and I don't know why. She's been with the district for 32 years, and I think she's just getting started. So unfortunately, she's decided that 32 was enough. We wish her all the best. And I just want to share, I asked around for some words to describe Denise here. Now, she was a teacher assistant, instructional aide, and she's been working as a one-on-one assistant. And here are some of the words that have come up to describe her: patient, kind, caring, helped everyone around her, teachers, students, and colleagues and parents. She was able to challenge her students while letting them know just how much she cared for them. And just a genuinely beautiful person on the inside and out. And so that describes Denise after 32 years of service to the children in North Smithfield, and we'll miss her and we wish her absolutely all the best.
Thank you, Superintendent. And Fatima, if you could have a letter written thanking her for her years of service, congratulating her on her retirement from the full committee. Anybody have any other questions? Again, we don't vote on this. This is for informational purposes. Moving on to old business.
Jim, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Could I just say something
Absolutely.
that I found interesting? In her letter of retirement, she thanked us for the opportunities within our school system that allowed her to be the best that she could be for the students. And she absolutely was the best, as Mr. St. Jean said. And I think that she deserves our respect for a job very, very well done. And she will be missed.
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to old business, the fiscal year 21 operating and capital budget. Lisa, I assume that this is just a standing item. We don't need to talk about it. I know you're not on mute, but I can't hear you. Just nod your head.
Yes,
Oh, well,
yes, unless anyone has questions.
okay, great. Seeing none, we'll move on to the fiscal year 22 operating or capital budget. Do we have any updates on any of that? I know that we did vote on it, we did submit it. Is there any additional updates? Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, didn't we say that if we had to make any adjustments, we would, so we didn't have to make any of those less, like we empowered Lisa to make some adjustments within a range. She
Yes.
didn't make we didn't have to make any of those adjustments.
No, we didn't make any adjustments. We didn't get any additional information in, so we didn't touch anything.
Great, thank you. And then last item on the agenda is discussion in regards to school transportation contract. Superintendent, do you have any update on that?
We have a meeting on Thursday to hear the proposal. So nothing at this time.
All right.
Okay. Just for the record, we'll keep those 3 items on the agenda for the next meeting. Is there any further business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Have a good night.